Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 2023 SBIF District Rollout. We'll get started in just a few moments. As a reminder for everybody participating today, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. Additionally, everybody on the call today will be able to get a copy of this presentation. We'll be sending out a follow-up email. You can also rewatch this video on DPD's YouTube page. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, everybody. Again, my name is Kim Brisky. I am here with Summer Corps, the administrator of the SBIF program. Today, we're going to be talking about the May 2023 district rollout. Again, as a reminder, feel free to put any questions in the Q&A box. And after this presentation, you will be receiving an email with a copy of this PDF. To get things started today, I'd like to turn it over to Nora Curry at DPD to give us an introduction. Nora?
Thank you, Kim, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As Kim said, my name is Nora Curry. I am the SBIF program director for the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development, or DPD. I will also say that you're going to be hearing mostly today from the city's SBIF administrator, Summer Corps, and Sylvia Roscoe is the director for Summer Corps. But first, I wanted to welcome you. As you may know, the Small Business Improvement Fund, known as SBIF, provides grants to small businesses and property owners to make needed improvements to your properties. Over the last few years, we've made a lot of exciting changes to the SBIF program. We've increased the maximum grant to $150,000 and the possible reimbursement up to 90% of project costs for commercial projects. We've also doubled the amount of funding available citywide. Since 2020, City Council has authorized over $100 million in new funding for the SBIF, and we've rolled out that funding are in the process of rolling out the funding in the 65 TIFs all over the city of Chicago. In addition to the available funding, SBIF offers technical assistance, both from Summer Corps and your local delegate agency. By delegate agency, I mean your local chambers of commerce, your local industrial groups, those folks who are in your community. When you submit your application, you will be assigned a Summer Corps project manager. That person is there to help you through the SBIF process. If you run into any issues that are going to delay your project, make you miss a deadline, call your Summer Corps project manager immediately. They will help you try to solve that problem. Again, your local delegate agency, that local group, is also there to help you. Sylvia will talk about them later in the presentation. They can often help not just with the SBIF application, but with things like introducing you to local lenders, helping through the permit process, maybe helping you find contractors. They're a real good resource for all kinds of things. So again, we're all here to support your application because we want to see your business and your neighborhoods flourish. And with that, I'm happy to introduce you to Sylvia Roscoe, the SBIF director from Summer Corps. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Nora, and thank you to everyone today for joining us. As she mentioned, I am the SBIF program director. I work for Summer Corps. We are a not-for-profit organization. We're a small business lender that offers SBA loans. We administer the SBIF program, as well as the city's Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program. Now in its 23rd year, SBIF is one of the longest running and most successful city programs. We've helped retain and expand small businesses in nearly every neighborhood, with dispersing over $115 million to over 1,800 businesses. Please be advised that this is a non-residential program. This grant cannot be used for capital or operating expenses. It is specifically for infrastructure repairs. So thanks again for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation. Today we will talk about what is SBIF, what is our program mission, and what are the grant parameters. Getting started, is your business or property in a SBIF district? What SBIF districts are open or on deck? What are the SBIF program rules? How do you apply and what is the program timeline? What are the resources available to help? We will have a list of the May districts that we are rolling out today, as well as a sample project. We'll go over some SBIF facts and additional question and answer session at the end. The SBIF program was launched in 1999. It is the City of Chicago's Small Business Improvement Fund, which promotes economic development by providing small businesses and landlords with reimbursable grants for permanent building improvement cost. Residential projects are not eligible. SBIF uses local tax increment financing revenue to reimburse grantees for pre-approved repair or rehab of their business facilities or adjacent land acquisition. Summer Corps is a program administrator. We are contracted by Chicago's Department of Planning and Development. Today we have Marta Dominguez from Financial Services, Inc. She has participated in the SBIF project, the SBIF program. She recently completed her project, so she'll tell you a little bit more about her experience with SBIF.
Good afternoon. I am delighted to be here, and I am very, very excited to share my experience. I had been subleasing for over the last 14 years in Bridgeport, and I was truly afraid of committing to a building or purchasing or even just thinking of a commercial down payment. However, we took a leap of faith after the pandemic, after not having a lot of control of my own space due to COVID limitations. We took a leap of faith and we purchased a 4-unit building. The project, it seemed to have some repairs. However, with the cost of construction going up, our proposals jumped like by 40%. And that's when we had to break up our project into 2 phases. And as we completed the first phase, we assumed automatically we might have the equity to be able to get further lending funding for the second project. But we did face a lot of challenges at that time. And that's when we learned about the SBIF program through actually the Greater Southwest Development Corporation. They helped us with providing the information regarding the grant. And then at that point, when we were the recipients, Summer Corps did an excellent job of providing us very detailed instructions. I believe it was very easy to learn the way they had structured the whole process. So for, our experience was very seamless. And thankfully, we also, from the list of contractors, we're fortunate to work with a great contractor as well. And that made the whole process have a great experience through the whole process. So we were blessed to have the space remodeled. As you can see on the pictures here, actually, it was a really nightmare. And so to see the finished project, it's really amazing to see what the SBIF program allowed us to do through the different, the different funding. And also, I'm thankful that my local bank, CIBC, was also well informed about this grant, and therefore they were also guiding us through the process. They were familiar with what Summer Corps and the SBIF program, and that made also a world of difference.
Thank you very much, Marta. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And Marta and her team serve both the English and the Spanish-speaking community. The scope of work included a new storefront system, new exterior lighting, interior electrical, plumbing, HVAC work, renovations of the restroom, and roofing repairs.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll go over the grant parameters. Who is eligible for SBIF? The property must be located in a SBIF district where TIF in a TIF district where SBIF funds are available and the SBIF is authorized to accept applications. Landlords of commercial or industrial properties are eligible. Business owners of either commercial or industrial who lease or own their places of business. Tenants with prior written approval from property owners, and also startups may apply with a business plan. A Chicago business license is required for startup businesses prior to final reimbursement. The eligibility limits for commercial tenants or owner occupied, on average, their gross sales must be, they must be about $9 million or less in gross sales in order to qualify for the program. For landlords of commercial or industrial, $9 million or less in cumulative net worth and $500,000 liquid assets is the maximum per individual. For industrial tenants or owner-occupied businesses, 200 or fewer full-time employees are a requirement. So if they have over 200 employees, unfortunately, they are not considered a small business, thus not eligible for the grants. All owner-occupied properties are subject to both tenant and landlord requirements. What is the maximum grant amount allowed under SBIF? $250,000 is the maximum per industrial property. $150,000 is the maximum per a single owner or tenant of a commercial property or per landlord. $250,000 is a maximum that may be granted per multiple owner or tenant of a commercial property, with $75,000 being the maximum assistance per tenant or landlord. Applicants may receive one or more grants up to their maximum program assistance. Once this maximum is reached, the applicants will need to wait 3 years to reapply. Percentage of eligible project costs that can be reimbursed if your sales or net worth fall between $0 to $3 million, your eligibility would be up to 90% of eligible cost. Sales or net worth between 3 to 6 million, you'd qualify for 60% of reimbursements, and sales or net worth between 6 to 9 million, you would qualify for 30% of eligible cost and reimbursement. All industrial projects qualify for 50% reimbursement of eligible cost. Here we have an example of a SBIF project. So let's say that Grace submits an application for a SBIF project in an open district with a total eligible project cost of $100,000. She's proposing to make permanent building improvements to her existing retail shop, for which she is a tenant. Grace has been in business for 5 years. Over the last 3 years, her gross sales averaged $1.5 million. Her breakdown of eligible costs is as follows. Total eligible project cost at $100,000. As a commercial tenant applicant with gross sales under $3 million, she qualifies for a 90% reimbursement. The city's responsibility, 90% is $90,000, and the applicant's responsibility at 10% is $10,000. Keeping in mind that this is a reimbursement grant, and we'll discuss this a little further as we go. Is your property in a SBIF district? In order to determine this, you can visit our website at summercorps.com/SBIF to see if your property is in a SBIF district. Once you get to this page here, you can click on number 1 to confirm if your business is in a SBIF district. This will then take you to the SBIF locator tool where you can enter your address. Once you enter your address, it will give you detailed information pertaining to that specific property. It will include whether or not the property is in a TIF district, delegate agency contact information, as well as application period acceptance. Which SBIF districts are open or on deck? Eligible SBIF districts in Chicago span neighborhoods on the north, south, and west sides. Each month marks a new 30-day period where SBIF districts with available funds are open for applications. Notice of district openings are provided to relevant aldermen, posted on DPD and Summer Corps websites and included in the SBIF program. So once you click on the number 1, it'll tell you what districts are open, and you can view the calendar there with the list of open districts. What are the SBIF program rules? What business and organization types are ineligible to apply? Some of the ineligible businesses include chain and franchise businesses, currency exchange stores, gas stations, liquor stores, places of worship. This is not comprehensive, so if your business is not on here, you're not sure, you can always check in with Summer Corps. We'll be happy to let you know whether or not your business qualifies. What improvement costs are eligible for SBIF? We do cover permanent building improvements, including roofing and facade, components of signs or awnings which are permanently affixed to the building, any alterations or structures that are needed for ADA compliance, such as railings or ramps, or ADA accessible restrooms as well. HVAC and other mechanical systems, plumbing and electrical work, certain project-related architectural and construction management fees that are related to the project can be covered as well. We cover certain environmental remediation measures, permanent interior renovations, including fixtures, and the purchase of adjacent land parcels for purpose of expansion or parking. If you have something in mind that you're looking to do and it's not specified here, again, you can always check in with eligibility. What improvement costs are ineligible for SBIF? Things that we do not cover include new construction, whether it's an addition or an expansion from the ground up, any standalone minor repairs or cosmetic improvements, equipment-related expenses such as kitchen appliances, computers, office furniture, business-specific, or anything that can be easily taken out of the building is not eligible for reimbursement. Any planters surrounding or affixed to the building, outdoor dining or drinking areas, including roof decks, beer gardens, outdoor gardens, porches, decks, things of that sort are not eligible. Fencing, including pergolas, trellises, arbors, privacy screens, similar structures are not eligible. Any parking lot construction or repairs, landscaping, and work on residential units is not SBIF eligible. What are the design requirements? In order to receive funding, the projects must conform to design requirements, including meeting DPD's design guidelines. Projects shall comply with design guidelines and additional neighborhood requirements as described in the guidelines, style guides, community plans, and other planning documents that are associated with the TIF area and neighborhood in which the property is located. Applicants are strongly advised to consult with Summer Corps and design professionals on design requirements and guidelines before drawing up plans for work. All applicants for commercial properties who are approved for a grant of $25,000 or greater shall be required to make at least one exterior improvement using at least 10% of the maximum amount of their approved grant, including but not limited to facade repair, windows and doors, and other exterior improvements eligible subject to DPD's approval. This requirement can be waived at DPD's sole discretion if the applicant can demonstrate to DPD's satisfaction that no exterior improvements are needed because the improvements have been recently completed or the exterior features of the building have been well maintained and are consistent with the guidelines. What measures are in place to ensure applicant compliance with program rules? Checks will be performed on all applicants during the approval stage to ensure that they are current on property taxes, complying with child support laws, and not indebted to the city. Any scofflaw debt cleared with the City of Chicago via payment plan must be in compliance before any reimbursement will be made for eligible costs incurred. Additionally, all applicants must be current on property taxes prior to any reimbursement. Each applicant will sign an economic disclosure affidavit. Grantees will be required to sign an affidavit certifying that they will not relocate out of the TIF district or sell the business within a 3-year period following disbursement of funds. In cases of SBIF reimbursement for land purchase, proof of land ownership will be required before reimbursement may be made. How do you apply? You can download a copy of the SBIF application at our website at summercorps.com/SBIF. To apply, you must complete the application and email it to SBIF@summercorps.com within the designated open period. What is the SBIF program timeline? In stage 1, this is the applicant eligibility review. The applicant supplies any missing information to complete their application. You're granted up to 20 days to submit this information. In stage 2, this is the project eligibility review, the planning phase where the applicant is required to submit their plans, bids, and specifications. Any debts that are incurred must be cured by this timeframe. Stage 2, you're granted 120 days for this process. Please note that stage 1 and 2 must be completed before final review and project approval by DPD. If approved, you will receive your conditional commitment letter signaling you're able to begin construction. In stage 3, this is the project construction phase. Construction is completed during this time frame. You are granted up to 10 months. Proof of permit or permit application is concurrent with the 10-month construction phase. These items must be submitted within 120 days following the date of the commitment letter. In stage 3.4, this is the proof of financing phase. The applicant must provide proof of sufficient funds to complete the project. Again, concurrence within the 10 months, up to 120 days following the date of the commitment. The applicant must prove that they currently have sufficient equity to complete the project, at least 50% of the funds needed to cover the total project cost. For stage 4, this is the reimbursement phase. Once the project is completed, all the payment documentation and proof is sent over to the city for processing. The check can take approximately 4 to 6 weeks for processing. Unless DPD has granted an extension of time, applicants who do not complete each stage within the required phase time limit will be disqualified. A maximum of 2 extensions may be granted with DPD's approval in the case of unavoidable delay due to extraordinary circumstances. DPD may also, on a case-by-case basis, grant a grant-eligible application an additional amount of time to complete any program requirement. In such case, DPD shall have discretion to determine the appropriate length of the extension. What is required to deem a project complete and receive grant funds? The construction project must officially be completed. We require proof of payment documentation, submission for review, which should include a sworn statement, invoices, canceled checks, and final waivers of lien. Summer Corps will complete a final site visit to verify the work has been completed, and you would be required to submit copies of your building permits. Within 4 to 6 weeks, the grant payment will be received by check. What resources are available to help? You can visit our website to access resources to support your SBIF project. Here we have our design guidelines. We have a list of SBIF lenders that are familiar with the program. They are more inclined to help you finance the project. We can also sign a bank assignment so that the proceeds of the grant go directly to the lender to pay off a portion of your loan. You can also find lists of contractors, technical assistance providers, as well as additional small business resources. Get to know your local delegate agency. These are organizations that are assigned to assist small business owners in the SBIF districts that are opening this month. So these are local to your area based on the TIF districts, if you're familiar with them or not. Either way, they are assigned to assist with SBIF applicants with assistance, so please feel free to reach out to them. Here are a few more delegate agencies that you can reach out to. Just keep in mind that we'll have a copy of this presentation sent over to you, and this video will be available on DPD's YouTube page. Here we have the list of TIF districts that are open for the month of May. We are now accepting applications through May 31st at 5 p.m. The districts include 53rd Street, 63rd and Ashland, Belmont and Cicero, Brownsville, and Humboldt Park Commercial. You can submit an application via email, again at sbif@summercorps.com. Please allow 2 business days for Summer Corps to confirm receipt of your application via an email response. If you do not receive an email confirmation within this time, please send a follow-up message or call our main line at 312-360-3300. Applicants are responsible for making sure submissions are received within the open acceptance period. Here we have a project that was completed in the Brownsville TIF district. This is Emma Shea Cakery and Cafe, located at 3452 South Prairie Avenue. As you can see, it was gutted, and we did a full build out of the interior of the space as well as some exterior upgrades. Here we have some after pictures of the completed work here. Pretty much touched on every building component here, from flooring, mechanical, HVAC, new wiring system, new plumbing system, HVAC, including a new commercial exhaust hood system with the associated ductwork, painting, and drywall. What are the financial requirements to participate in the SBIF? The SBIF program is a reimbursable grant, so project participants should be prepared with financing to support the permanent building improvements. Proof of financing is not required until stage 3, but applicants are encouraged to contact their business lender or reach out to one of the lenders listed on the Summer Corps website in a timely manner. Grantees may choose to complete their project in phases rather than requiring 100% of the upfront cost of the project. Applicants will receive an approval for the full scope of work, and construction will be completed based on necessity and contractors' recommendations. The phase disbursements will be based on progress or completion of eligible construction work. For an example, an applicant approved to complete a roof tear-off, HVAC upgrades, and the installation of a new storefront under one application can complete the work in phases. Once the roof improvements are complete and the proper paperwork is submitted, the applicant can be reimbursed for that work and then use those funds to address the HVAC upgrades, and then repeat the process to be reimbursed for that and use those funds for the storefront upgrades. Are startups or new businesses eligible? Yes, most startups can apply. Startup applicants will need to supply a detailed business plan and projections of the business's income and expenses for its first 36 months of operation as part of their application materials. The City of Chicago reserves the right to impose additional conditions for funding in connection with startup business applications. If you've been in business for 1 to 2 years, Summer Corps requires tax returns and a projection of gross sales to equal 3 years of data. Please note that bars, taverns, hotels, and motel applicants must have held their applicable license and been in business for at least 1 calendar year. Am I eligible if I live outside of Chicago? The important consideration is where you have your business or your property. To participate in SBIF, your property must be in the city of Chicago, as the funding source comes from the city's property taxes. If you live in another area, please call your city's planning, economic development, or community development department to see what other programs may be available to assist small business. What if your building has both business and residential spaces? This program is primarily for business use, but there are mixed use exceptions. For these buildings, many envelope projects such as roofing, facade improvements, and tuck pointing can be eligible. Will there be enough SBIF funding for applicants? Each tax increment financing district that has the SBIF program authorized in it has limited funds reserved for the program. If demand for the SBIF funds is greater than the available funding supply, then a lottery will be conducted to determine the order in which each grant application may be accommodated. If any surplus funds become available, they will be allocated to waitlisted applicants. Applicants for a property located in an Invest Southwest corridor shall be given priority for funding and the lottery. Applicants for a property located in a target corridor shall be second in priority for funding and the lottery. The remaining applicants shall be provided funding if available and placed on the wait list if applicable. After applicants in the Invest Southwest corridor and target corridors are addressed. Is there SBIF funding available in my district? Every SBIF area has its own budget that the city refills if it has SBIF funds available and if there's a demonstrated need for more grant money. You can email the Summer Corps team at sbif@summercorps.com to see if there are funds in your SBIF. We also maintain an interested parties list for funds, which you can also send an email to SBIF team to join. When more funding becomes available or the city allocates more funds, we will let you know. The interested parties list helps the city of Chicago gauge demand for additional funding. What if you are in a TIF and it is not SBIF? Tax increment financing is the mechanism that funds the SBIF program. If you're in a TIF district and it does not have SBIF, please contact your alderman. Thank you once again for joining us. Here we have Summer Corps and DPD's contact information. We have both websites listed here below. The website at chicago.gov/SBIF. That one has the option to translate the web page into a different language. There will be an option on the upper right-hand corner for you to change it to any of the languages that are available there. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll get started with the question and answer session.
Thanks again, Sylvia. I really appreciate it. This is just a reminder for everybody listening right now that if you do have a question, now is a great time to put it in the Q&A box for response, and we'll start rolling through. I was going to say first, Sylvia, if you wanted to perhaps discuss what the most common stumbling blocks or challenges are for SBIF applicants.
So since this is a reimbursement program, the biggest challenge would be to finance the project up front. So we encourage applicants to get started with this process immediately so that once you get the approval from the city of Chicago, you are basically ready to roll with things. Another thing that you have to be aware of is that excuse me, you want to find a good contractor as well. So those are a couple things that, you can get started with right now. Ultimately, we'll request contractors' estimates and things of that sort. But if you want to start, the process right now, it doesn't hurt.
I think another common question we get is does getting SBIF funding disqualify you from applying for other opportunities like regular TIF funding or the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or the Chicago Recovery Plan grant? Can you talk about how those programs impact each other?
Sure. So unfortunately, you cannot use both programs at the same time. Excuse me. So if you are approved, or if your application has been selected for another city grant program, you will have the option to determine what program you want to go forward with. But unfortunately, you cannot utilize both at the same time. If there's any city funding that you've received within the past 3 years from any other city grant program, it will be deducted from what you would qualify for SBIF. So for example, let's say a year ago you received $50,000 from another city grant program. That would leave you with an eligibility of SBIF grants of only $100,000 if it were a single commercial space that would qualify for $150,000.
That's excellent. So another question, just a little bit of clarification on what new construction, what that definition is. The specific question was, if they had a new lease on an unfinished shell premises in a new but existing building. So essentially, would you be able to just describe what new construction, what that definition is in terms of SBIF?
Sure. So with the new building, if it is under 3 years old, that would be considered new construction. If the building has been in existence and it's, has its, the certificate of occupancy, but the work just has not been completed, that would not be eligible through SBIF. If the building is 5 years old, and things, need to be completed to accommodate the tenants, then we could accommodate those changes. But new construction would be referred to as, let's say you have a vacant lot and you want to build on that, that would not be eligible. If you have an existing building and you're looking to create a second floor, or if you're looking to add an addition to the rear, that would not be eligible either.
Thanks for that clarification. I appreciate it. So what if the application period for the district you are in has passed? So it's now outside of your deadline. What happens? Can you apply at that point? Does that mean you go on the wait list? How does that work?
So you cannot apply if you do apply, you'll receive a letter just letting you know that we're not authorized to accept applications at that time. We will add you to our interested parties list. As a courtesy, we'll send you an email to let you know when there is an opportunity to apply. You can also check our calendar to see when that district may reopen as well.
Got it. So the key is only applying during your application window. Any applications outside of that will not be accepted.
Correct. And the only applications that are eligible to be placed on the wait list are those that were submitted within the open acceptance period, but we did not have enough funding to fully fund every application that we received.
That's helpful. In terms of timeline for the SBIF program, what is generally the time period between when you actually close the application period? So in this case, at the end of May, and then when you actually have the green light, so either the conditional commitment letter to actually start construction?
So once we stop accepting the applications, within a couple weeks, we will notify the applicants if there is a required lottery. If not, we'll send out a letter requesting the additional items to complete the application. And excuse me. Excuse me, I seem to have a frog stuck in my throat. I apologize. Okay. So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought with that.
Oh, that's okay. This is the question from when you start from when the application closes to when you can actually start construction. And I suppose to add on that, this particular question, they wanted to know when they actually are awarded funds. So perhaps a little bit of clarification on the structure of this being a reimbursement grant would be helpful.
Okay, so once we get through that, whether we need a lottery or not, the second, or I should say the first phase would allow 20 days. The second stage will allow 4 months. We usually try to work at the pace that the applicant is going to. So you do not have to take that full 4 months, to move along with the process. If you have all your necessary documents in 2 months, we can move forward with that process then. But I would say maybe about 5 or 6 months, you should be at that point where you can obtain your conditional commitment letter to get started with the construction.
And for everybody who had additional questions about that, the timeline is here. But in terms of actually being awarded funds, that's not something that will happen until the project is ready to be reimbursed. Can you talk a little bit about then how the reimbursement grant is structured?
Sure. So we give you the approval based on your estimated cost. And once that construction is completed, you have 2 options: either fully complete all the projects, or you can also break it out in various phases. So depending on which option you take, we do require the payment documents to be submitted. We do have to confirm that the work has actually been done. So that is when you actually receive your reimbursement from the City of Chicago. So once the work is done, you have your proof. The processing takes about 4 to 6 weeks for you to obtain the funding, the reimbursement, keeping in mind that you are required to upfront the cost of the project.
That's helpful. I had another question here about mixed use, and they are in need of replacing the roof. The building is a 3-flat in this case, so the roof covers a residential apartment, and below the apartment is the business. Is the roof going to be an eligible element of their project?
As long as there is a commercial business operating on the ground floor that is SBIF eligible, we can accommodate the roofing renovations.
Excellent. And you sort of answered somebody else's question. Is a commercial property with apartments on top eligible? But as a clarification, any work to the actual residential unit interiors, that's not going to be allowed, correct?
Correct. We don't do the residential interiors, or we don't do any common area spaces that the residential tenants would utilize.
We have a question here wanting to know if trucking companies are allowed. And I wonder, maybe it's less about the type of business in this case and more about whether or not they actually have a commercial property or an industrial property that's eligible. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So it does depend on the property itself. If they have a actual brick and mortar space where they have their office spaces, we can cover renovations to the building itself. If there's a large, parking space where they do repairs or store the trucks, we don't do anything like parking. We don't do fencing, things of that sort. So the building itself would be eligible for permanent renovations.
Excellent. All right, at this point, I don't think we have any additional unanswered questions. So I am going to close the presentation here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Really great participation and awesome questions. Again, everyone will be receiving a follow-up email with a copy of this PDF presentation. You can also rewatch this video on DPD's YouTube page. Thank you very much, everybody, and we look forward to seeing your applications.
Thank you.